Hey gang, hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Dan. Maybe you know that. I'll let you see my face for just a minute, you lucky people you. I'm actually not painting in my bedroom, contrary to current appearances. I'm actually painting in my studio, and every once in a while my studio becomes the overflow bedroom. Hello, Araya, Sen, and Mark, and Uncle. Thank you. Let's get official. This is Daily Art Adventure number. Finally, I hope I'm back in the saddle again. 954 more tips and tricks for capturing a likeness. It's a sign of something that I write it down a few minutes ago. Then I have to read it to remember what I wrote down. That's not a good sign. Anyway, let's get to work. I have basically two, not four, two tips and tricks that I decided to share with you today as I continue. But let's see, before I get into it, let's just show you, and I'm sorry, I'm going to move you around a little bit. All right, so let's show you the faces as they are at the moment. So there's the woman at the top, and let's see if I can line this up so you can see both of them are about the same size. There we go. All right, so that lady, I'm pretty happy. She's not done yet, but I'm pretty happy with her. And I didn't use any tips or tricks for these two faces. Here's the other one. Here's this one right there. Hang on just a second. I'll get it lined up. Close enough. I'm sorry. Anyway, close enough. Pretty happy with that. It's not done yet, but you saw me yesterday working on this one. And I'm finally pretty happy with that. Hang on, let me move you again. All right, so there we go. Now, I knew that this little guy, I suspected that this little guy was going to be a challenge, and indeed it is. The reason is, pull up his photograph for you, right up close, is that all babies look the same. That's not strictly true, of course, but it's largely true. That's why all babies are beautiful. They have not yet begun to widely differentiate as we do as adults. And you may know that beauty in humans is, to a significant degree, a matter of averageness. You can really shock a non-artist by telling them that average-looking people are the most beautiful. There's been studies done that you can tweak that slightly. But anyway, so it's hard to capture a likeness of somebody that, so to speak, has no features, especially when you're not a camera, when you're not perfect. So I want to show you, first of all, I'm not sure that I've ever demonstrated this, so this is a good time. I don't know what to call it. For want of a better term, I call it flip chart. Even though there's not a chart, it's flip would be the better word. I worked on this half of his face yesterday afternoon for just a little while. Ran out of gas, went to eat supper. So the last thing I did is just wiped out this eye. There was an eye there, but it wasn't in the right position, so it needed moving. Now, I think you can intuit how this works just by watching me right here. So again, I call this flip, or flip chart, if you will, method. And the first thing I'll say about it is it's not as easy as it it's not as easy as it looks. You really have to discipline your eye to stay still and not follow the movement, not follow the flipping. So the effect when you're doing it, when you hold your eye still, the effect is really is a flashing. You're not even aware of which image you're looking at. It just, there's a flashing on off on off on off on off on off, and you're looking for movement in the flashing. Does that make sense? You're looking for some feature, and I'm only looking. I'm not looking all over the place. I'm just like looking. A moment ago, well, let's stick with it. A moment ago, I was focused on his nostril right here. Aha! And I now see that this side of his nostril right here has to come down more like that. Let me test that. Do a little bit more. I'm getting closer. Okay, there's less flashing happening now than there was a few minutes ago, so that's good. Look at that horrible way I'm holding the brush, right? I'm not going to bore you too much with this technique. At the bushes of Africa. Thank you. I am completely honored to have you watching. Yes, Uncle. I absolutely need to have some kind of party at 1,000. One would think what's the word? Putting it off. My broadcast productivity has fallen off steeply in the last couple of months, hasn't it? Again, I don't think it's a sign of anything serious, just funny coincidences. But yeah, we'll need to think of something. In the back of my mind, Uncle, I'm thinking that before I hit 1,000, I have a couple of technical items, like the new camera. I want to have that, up, running, experienced, purchased, ready to go. So it's kind of a funny earmark that I have in my mind. Oh yeah, I want to make sure I've got things like that taken care of by the time I get ready to go. By the time I get to 1,000, I mean, not ready to go. Sometimes I try to keep talking when my painting brain is engaged, and I say stupid things. Some of you think, well, that must be all the time because you're always saying stupid things. Yeah. Oh, let me show you another trick that goes along with this. It goes along with several tricks. Hello, Tulsi Portraitify. Tulsi Portraitify. I like it. Hey yourself. Here's another trick. When you're using any photomechanical device, like I am right now, for achieving a perfect likeness, another trick that you can incorporate with that is, instead of using a paintbrush, use one of these pencils. So the pencil it's called, it's worn off, called Jumbo Jet Black, distributed by Jerry's Artorama. It's technically a waxed base, which technically means an oil-based pencil, but it plays very well with both water, acrylics, and oils. Interacts with both. All right, but the point I was going to make after introducing the pencil is that if you will make your corrections in pencil, it's easier to keep track of them because the pencil shows up on your painting and says, I'm pencil, I'm pencil, I'm pencil. And, whereas when you make a correction with paint, everything here is paint. So when you put paint on it, the paint doesn't show up. In other words, it's hard to keep track. Now, what have I corrected and what have I not corrected so far? So using the pencil helps keep track of what you've corrected, because anything that I now see, because I can see pencil there, there, and there, that shows me that that's a correction. And of course, I'll go over it with paint. But so the pencil is just really helpful for speeding up the correction process, making changes. Because again, simply because it helps you see where you've been. See, can you see those little lines right there? That shows me. Whereas if I had made some of these marks in paint, I wouldn't be able to distinguish parts that have already been corrected with parts that are yet to be corrected. All right, there. It's about as clearly as I can say that. Thank you very much. Some of you may be wondering then, when I follow up, when I go over the pencil with paint, do I need to be careful to cover up all the pencil? And the answer is no, 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 no. If a little bit of the pencil remains peeking through, doesn't hurt a bit. All my pencils. First of all, this painting is going to be getting a oil glaze, at least one oil glaze over the whole thing before I finish. But even if that were not the case, the painting is going to be varnished. Used to be in the olden days, I don't know if you guys have got this memo or not. In the olden days, they said you had to wait 6 months before you could varnish a painting, right? And now the gambling people, let me go get the bottle over here. Gambling people who make a lot of oil paint stuff, they have come up with a new varnish, which I'm assuming is just closely related to retouch varnish. Anyway, oh, this is Gamsol. I'm sorry. I thought it was a bottle of Gamvar. Sorry, confused you there. Confused myself. Okay, so the bottle, the varnish bottle, looks almost exactly like this, except it says Gamvar. 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 Anyway, and they say you can varnish your painting as soon as it's dry to the touch. So that has been a great boon to my painting career, because now I typically deliver paintings already varnished. All right, I'm going to finish this again, for want of a better term, what I call flip chart technique. By the way, I've never seen anybody else use this. Maybe they do, but I don't know about it. I made it up myself. I make up a lot of stuff myself. It's just part of the way I'm wired. I'm kind of an inventor, so I'm always devising new stuff. But I'm going to show you another. It's somewhat easier, a little bit more technical, a little bit, tiny bit, but definitely easier to use than the. Well, let's before I leave, let's go ahead and, again, with the pencil, let's go ahead and get the. So here's what I do. I make a mark where I think the corner of that eye is, then I check and see if. Bingo. Perfect. 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 All right. Then I'm going to make a mark for the edge of the eye, and I think it's right here. Let's check on it. Okay, close enough. Let's make a mark for the bottom of the eye. Again, sort of a very strange visual discipline, if you will, doing this. I don't know if it looks easy to you, maybe it will be easy for you, but it's not easy for me. As you can see, that's not keeping me from using it. I don't use this technique very often. That's why I'm quite sure I've never talked about it or demonstrated it. But there are times, there have been times for me when it is just the most direct path from here to there. If you don't have access, say at the moment. Oh, by the way, hang on. Let me explain something. All of this technique presupposes one of two things. Either that you're doing a painting that's exactly the same size as your reference photo. And of course, you wouldn't want to do this just if your client gave you a photo, a real photo on photo paper, you probably don't want to be doing this to it because you're going to ruin it, okay? So I'm assuming you understand all this without me saying it, but let's say it anyway. So I'm assuming that you can print off an image or do a painting off a print. Either you're painting the same size as your photo, or in my case, and this is an important distinction, this is important. In my case, let me pause, semicolon, ellipsis, ... Wait. Let me back up a little bit again. 2 days ago, when you watched me start this painting, you'll remember that I started, again, looking at that photograph right there, and the smaller one over here, but I just painted intuitively. I didn't do any measured, no grid, no nothing. We talked about this 2 days ago and yesterday. I made several changes. Let me back. Okay, you can see both of them already, can't you? You can see both the large. This is not quite full size. Long story, not quite full size. But there's several things I did different. The main thing is all of the heads in this painting are larger relative to the dimensions of the canvas. Relative to the space, the heads are bigger. And that's number one, because I'm a human and I screw up and I make mistakes and I'm not a camera and I'm perfect and I'm imperfect. So much for all the humility. Now for the not humility. On the other hand, there's little question in my mind that what I've ended up here with the heads bigger is significantly better. There's too much empty space in this photograph, and I've corrected that here. Another thing is look how much space there is here and how much there is here. So I've raised all the heads up. My point is, painting intuitively, I think, gives me a better image and a better painting than slavishly gridding, copying, measuring. Now, it means I have to do more work because it means I screw up, because it's imperfect. Again, I've done a pretty good job at two of the faces. This one took quite a bit of work, and this one's taken the most work. All right, so let me back to where I was going with this. The way I work then, and this is a distinct preferred method. Once I've started the painting, and it's clear that this little boy's head is going to be what turns out happens to be 4.5 inches. I measured it. I didn't measure it before I painted. I measured it after I painted. Are you with me? And then I go to Photoshop. So again, this depends on you owning a computer. sorry while I chuckle. You've got to own a computer if you're an artist. You've got to have Photoshop if you're an artist. I mean, if you're just a hobbyist, bless your heart, do whatever you want to do. Paint by pounding rocks together. But if you want to be a real artist, get over it. Photoshop costs $10.99 a month, I think. It's outrageously cheap. And then you have to learn how to use it. That's not cheap. Anyway, so in Photoshop then, see, and sometimes I have to experiment. I have to print out more than 1, 2, 3 copies before I get it exact. So what I'm saying is I make the reference photo to match the painting, not vice versa. All right, so clearly you understand that this has to be the same size as this, or this technique doesn't work, right? Sorry, I'm insult. Now I'm downright insulting your intelligence. Sorry about that. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. So, other things that are clear is this paint has to be dry, or the tape won't stick, right? Is there danger sticking tape to an oil painting? My answer is, heck no. It's high quality duct tape. No, don't stick duct tape to your oil painting. That really might be dangerous. No, it's this not nice kind of masking tape that we all get nowadays. All right, let's go to in some ways an easier. So, because this was already taped to this painting, and it was all wrinkled from flipping it, I went out and just went to my. Oh, by the way, you need to be an artist. Let's finish the list. You need a computer, you need Photoshop, and you need a printer. And thank God, I remember the days. Do you remember when printers first came out? They were horrible. And you had to pay hundreds of dollars to get a high quality photo printer. Now the cheapest, $129.95, Hewlett Packard printer does photo stuff like this. I mean, it's not like an Epson, high quality Clay printer, but good grief, it's plenty good enough. All right. So the point being, I printed this out again. It's supposed to be the same size. Well, it doesn't look like the same size, is it? Yeah, okay, just optical illusion, I hope. Hang on, let me test this over here. Let me make sure these are actually the same size. I'm getting a little bit nervous all of a sudden. I have a light table over here. Yeah, okay, same size. Whew. Now, this technique requires one more little bit of technology. It's not very high-tech technology though, but you need clear plastic acetate sheets, clear plastic, okay? You can get these at an office supply store or art supply store, either one. And so you tape the plastic down. You tape the plastic down on top of the photograph so that it doesn't move. You tape it down, again, with our wonderful blue magic masking tape. Tape it down, and then with a Sharpie marker, or in this case, this kind of artsy Sharpie marker, trace it as carefully as you want. And I did it pretty carefully, all right? And then we can tape this to our painting again. So put it in a position where most of your lines line up. So you change as little as possible. Usually I go for the eyes. Usually it's the eyes that I want to line up. Everything else I'll change slightly. But that looks pretty close. Okay, now it's important. Once again, it's important that this be dry. So I did this yesterday. Some of you might be saying, wait a minute, oil paints don't dry that fast. Whoa, okay, whoa. Yes, they do. I have two tricks for making my oil paints are virtually always dry, except for the final stages sometimes. They're always dry the next day because, of course, I'm using liquid, fast dry, medium. Liquid gel's my favorite. And my titanium white is Alkyd, fast dry Alkyd titanium white. All right, so that's why this whole painting is dry, even though I was working on it yesterday afternoon. Now I'm sure that the rest of this then is quite understandable. I'm just going to, and I'm still doing a flip chart kind of thing in a way, aren't I? Because you can't draw on it while the plastic's in the way, so. This right here, this is about as serious a cheat, so to speak. I used to call all of this cheating, and then I realized I was ruining some people's lives by calling it cheating. I used to say, cheating, it's legal, which it is, but short circuits your drawing ability. You become a worse drawer. Not only do you not improve, you actually get worse at drawing if you rely too much on these quote-unquote cheater methods. So I stopped calling them cheater, because there's some of you, life's too short, you want to do some paintings and you just don't have the drawing skills and you still want to do some paintings, and I salute you and say go for it. So I have stopped using the term cheating. By the way, it's pretty important. I'm going to reinforce that tape a little bit. Pretty important that that tape not get moved, or you have to go through the hassle of replacing it again, repositioning it again, I mean. Get a nice sharp crease. There we go. So now, instead of cheating, I call them photo-mechanical tips and tricks, and that's what I'm showing you today. Now, I was somewhat, and as I usually say, I'm always a little bit embarrassed because I feel like I should be able to do this without, I watch other artists who don't cheat, and I go, man, they're really good. Joshua LaRock, who lived for a couple years here in Raleigh, North Carolina, my hometown, is one of those. Those highbrow artists, atelier trained artists, they only paint, from life. I envy them the luxury. They get paid a bazillion times more than I do. Alas, we all have our place in the cosmos, don't we? And happiness is coming to grips with your place. I say my place. My happiness is coming to be satisfied with where I am and where I am. And as my favorite joke is, sentence. Well, he ain't no John Singer Sargent, that's for sure. That's the one sentence that people use with my name and John Singer Sargent's in the same sentence. Which is, he ain't no John Singer Sargent. All right. The sign of a feeble mind, I'm sure, is he can laugh at the same joke over and over. It's not even an original joke. I heard it from Kyle Rote Jr. Anybody out there remember Kyle Rote Jr.? He was the first, maybe one could say, really good soccer player in America back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I actually heard him speak one time. And he's the one who made that joke. Kyle Rote Jr. was the best soccer player in the world at the time. And he said people compare him to Pele all the time. And then he said, here's what they say, he sure ain't no Pele. He said being the best American soccer player in the world was kind of like being the best Italian third baseman in the world. If you hear a good joke, feel free to use it. I say. All right, so that didn't take long, did it? And that is pretty darn accurate right there. I mean, as far all it gives me is lines. It doesn't give me values. There's still plenty of drawing left to do. By the way, let me go back to my comment. I know I say this all the time, but there might be somebody new watching. If you rely on this kind of stuff too much, your drawing skills deteriorate. Not only do you not get better, you actually get worse. I know, because that happened to me as an illustrator. That's why, here's what I advocate. And I would say, everybody, do this as much as you can. I'm going to take this off now because I think I'm ready to go. So what you do then is exactly what I've done in this painting. I started 2 days ago. I started this painting just looking and painting, or over here, look and paint. No, nothing, just, all right? And happily, I feel like I nailed it on these two women. In fact, here she feels right now like she's smiling slightly more. Looks like her, but she's smiling slightly more than the photograph, which is a good thing. Not sure about this. Now I need to make her look a little happier. And again, this is only the second of at least 3 layers. So what I recommend is give it your best shot. And don't spend days, weeks, or months trying to get it perfect. No, give it some hours doing it the old-fashioned, look at your thumb like an artist. I'm being silly. And then begin to employ various photomechanical tricks. Okay. Now, if you're working for hire and you have a deadline, the portrait has to be done, tomorrow, then all of this goes out the window. If the portrait has to be done tomorrow, you cheat. And I employ some of that when I'm doing a wedding painting because, I want the portrait to be pretty close by the end of the reception. So I used to do a fair amount of gridding at my wedding receptions, but in the last year I've even gotten away from that, and I don't do that as much, but I feel free to do so if I need to. Whew. All right, now let's just start painting. Oh, by the way, this be a good opportunity, good moment for me to talk about color. You regulars, I don't usually spend time or energy giving you my recipes for colors, but I'm going to make an exception here. I don't give recipes for color. I know many artists do, but I don't, because I want to push my students quickly beyond the do it by recipe into do it by eyeball, do it by sight. I could say more about that, but it's going to leave it. But an exception right now. I'm just going to give you, as I was mixing these up this morning, it dawned on me, oh wait, this would be a good, this is a little tip, a little trick. All right, here they are. Number one, my black, quote unquote black. This is a combination of oxide red and ultramarine blue. And if you just mix those two together, you get, in the right proportion, you get, they're both transparent. You get pretty darn black. If you want it blacker, add a little purple, dioxazine violet to it, or even some viridian green to it. And anyway, all of those will be black. But for portraits, here's the exception. Oxide red, ultramarine blue gives me black. And for portraits, I don't leave it black. I add a touch either of permanent rose or naphthol crimson. Now, this depends that you've already seen somewhere my tour, the tour of my palette, which of course some of you haven't. So let me give it to you. Oh, by the way, here's another tip. Many times you'll see me use, picking up a rag and putting Gamsol on the rag and then holding the rag in my hand. By the way, that is the kind of thing that could be bad for your health. So I do have studio wipes here on hand. I've gotten so that I have them. Have them in my van, have them in all of my various painting kits so that I can wipe my hands periodically to get oil stuff off them. Anyway, okay, my three reds are permanent rose, naphthol red deep if they ask, naphthol red deep, not light, and scarlet lake. Those are my three favorite reds. So that I have no cadmiums and no cobalts. I don't want to give a whole tour of the whole thing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But add a little bit of naphthol crimson to this black so that in effect this is what I would call red black or black red, either one. It's black red, so that when I'm doing quote unquote black on my portrait, it's not literally black, it has a redness to it, which is, of course, more realistic. All right, now the other colors, again, just a shorthand way of mixing things. Far and away, my most common pigment for flesh tones is oxide red. Any brand will do. Any good oxide red. This happens to be Charbon out of France, but most good paint companies have a good oxide red. It's a very universal color. But instead of mixing this with white to get a flesh tone, here's a good tip. Mix it either with a tiny bit of yellow ochre and white, or better yet, Naples yellow. So Naples yellow, which you can see right here, is like a light. I'm sure it's not chemically, it's not the same pigment, but it visually, it's almost exactly a yellow ochre light. So when you mix this to get your lightness, you get a richer, warmer flesh tone than if you mix white. Now, I do use white as well, but I use either a tiny bit of yellow ochre or a larger amount of Naples yellow to get a warm, pale flesh tone. Then just one other thing I'm going to add to that is take this color, that pale flesh, and add a little bit of, in this case, Scarlet Lake is my favorite, to make it the blush tone. Okay, now this is not all the colors that I will use. In fact, this is not by any means light enough. I'll need something much lighter. But this is sufficient for this layer of my portrait process. I again, and this is sort of a Rembrandtish approach. Warm, muted earth tones, flesh tones underneath, and the color comes forward step by step by step, degree by degree by degree. Does that make sense? I showed you, never mind, I won't show you an unfinished painting. This is close enough. So we're sneaking up on color. This is not even the only way I paint. I have a number of different approaches. This is just one. This happens for me to be the fastest, quickest way. I've probably got 7 or 8 hours in this painting so far, to give you an idea. So that would be an average of 2 hours per face. And that's not bad. And these faces are all 85, 90, 92% finished. Okay, the hard part, the drawing, is done. It's just mostly just a matter of popping, little movement, little adjustments. Like I say, I have to figure out why she doesn't look quite as happy here. And there could be anything, dozens of things, but some line needs to move up, down, or some crease needs to be lighter or darker or something. Anyway, there you go. So that's a quick tour of my simple. Oh, I'll give you one more, just real quick. 2 things. Hair. When it comes to hair, and again, this is really at kind of at a stupid level, but go ahead, start at a stupid level. For this is raw umber, is nearly always the perfect starter color for brunette or dark hair. Raw umber equals human dark hair. And yellow ochre, who'd have thought, is nearly the perfect starter color, mixed with white, of course. Yellow ochre is nearly the perfect place for starting with human blonde hair. So there you go. That's the end. I don't usually give recipes like that, but I'll make an exception this time. All right, let's do just a little bit of a painting on this little guy. Hang on, I'm going to step over here to my paper cutter. By the way, I have a lot of equipment. That's because I'm old. I'm astonished every time I think about how old I am. I'm 66 years old. Every time I say that, I go, golly, how did that happen? But I've been an artist pretty much my whole life. And in the course of being an artist, I've done a lot of stuff, and I've needed a lot of equipment. So don't feel like every time you turn around in my videos, I'm picking up, you guys, in fact, I have 2 paper cutters over there. One of them is, I'm using it as a table. Can you see it? It's as big as a table. I can cut 36-inch or 48-inch stuff. That's because I don't buy that. Somebody gave that to me. Somebody was retiring. All right, let's enough of this silliness. Let's finally get down to doing some painting. So now, of course, I'm following the pencil lines that I put down a while ago. I'm painting horribly. This is terrible painting technique. Oh, now it's not so bad. Now I'm painting with the blade, the side of the brush. That's a little bit more legitimate. You will notice that I am using my how to paint variegated, highly variegated objects, which certainly includes human faces. And the answer is mid-tone over everything, dark details, then light details. Indeed. That in that order is the order there is the salient issue, if you will. Salient being the salient word. Salient means salty. So once again, I'm painting over, wait, I need to pick up my reference again, because I'm going, wait a minute, is that the line of his shirt? Oh my goodness, it is. Wow, that's off by a mile on his shirt. That's distressing. I'm a lot dumber than I thought. I had his shirt way down here and I missed it by over 1/4 of an inch. How can that be? There you go. Comes mostly from not paying close enough attention. I mean, that's really where all the mistakes in portrait come from, paying not close enough attention to something. I'm now mixing some of this, what I called red black. I'm mixing it with some dark flesh tone, so that, which had white in it. So now the color that I'm using is no longer, what's on my brush now is still dark, but it's no longer transparent. So I want just to make mention of this again for you regulars. You will recall that one of my most common mantras of all is you get dark with transparent colors and light with opaque. Okay, let me say that again just in case somebody new is watching. In painting, if you want any part of your canvas, any part of your painting to be darker, you achieve that darkening effect by using transparent paint. And that will mess up some of you. Your whole world will be turned upside down. It'll be turned right side up if you get a hold of that. If you want more on that subject, hang up here and do a search for my video called Dan Nelson Avoiding Mud. Okay, you won't have any trouble finding it. It's an 11-minute video where I explain that principle in considerable detail. But the reason I'm mentioning it right now is because I want you to know that I'm breaking that rule. Just a minute ago, I was actually getting part of my painting darker, not using transparent, but using opaque. That is, it had a tiny bit of white in it, right? And that's, so let me go ahead and tell you that the most common, every rule can be broken. But if you don't know what the rules are, you're probably just screwing up. That's what I say. There are some people who say there are no rules. There's two reasons for that. Either one, because they're a lousy painter, and indeed, a lot of professors would fit that description. Sorry to be so mean and blunt, it's true. There are a number of teachers who say there are no rules. It's either because, as I said, number one, because they're bad painters and they really don't know the rules, and they demonstrate it by their bad paintings. Or, more likely, they're not particularly linguistically gifted. That's just, and that's all right. We're not all good at everything. I'm terrible at a whole bunch of stuff. I got a list as long as the world about how many things I'm bad at. Language is not one of them. I'm pretty good at language. And it's just a sixth sense, an intuitive understanding. You know, grew up in a house where the king's English was spoken better than the king. You know, that kind of thing. Some of you understand because you had a similar. I wouldn't trade for it. It would set a really, really great way to start life. Knowing what proper usage and grammar actually sounds like is a great advantage. Anyway, good painters who say there are no rules, it's simply a matter of semantics. They're playing with, and usually what they say after they say that is, you show me a rule, you tell me a rule, and I show you a great painting that breaks it. Well, of course, the exception does not prove that the rule doesn't exist. In fact, you know that expression, the exception proves the rule often. But what I want to hasten to say is every rule can be broken. You just need to know when it should be broken. And that's easy as well. You break a rule when there is a contrary or mitigating, contrasting rule that comes into play. So my rule, which is you get dark with transparent paint and light with opaque, that can be broken, and is almost always broken with portraiture. Because if you use transparent paint to get dark, especially in the latter stages of a portrait, it'll be too stark, too contrasty, too intense, too wild and crazy. That doesn't work. So just want to point that out. I'm using, I mean, since I'm on the subject, let me just sew up a few loose ends. When I say transparent paint, that does not mean you run to or get online or run to your local art supply store and say, give me some of that transparent paint. No, 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 no. I'm not talking about like many paint manufacturers. Yeah, they'll have a little square. Hang on, I'll get it straight out here. Yeah, see that black square? What that is telling the buyer is that this is opaque. Okay, since I've gotten that deep into it, let's find another one. Here we go. Yeah, so here's oxide red. And you see that little open square? What they're telling the buyer is that this color is transparent. And then if it's half and half translucent, it'll be a square with a diagonal line through it, half black and half clear. All right, does that make sense? But what I'm saying when I say transparent paint has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how much medium you put in it to make it transparent. All right, and I'm sorry I just insulted half of you, insulted your intelligence. You're rolling your eyes and say, good grief, how dumb does this guy think we are? I don't think you're dumb, but there's always the possibility that some young, early journey painter, really early journey painter, will catch this broadcast by accident. Right, so the good news is I have this guy's almost up to the level that they are, and I'm pretty confident. I'm not finished yet, but I'm going to finish without you watching. I'm pretty confident that all my lines, so to speak, are in the right place. I still need to be careful not to mess up the drawing. Oh, I've done that. Oh my goodness, have you done that? I've done that. Go through some process to get everything right, and then in the course of painting, the lines get shifted. That happens all the time. But my main task, which you see me working on right now, is getting the values correct. And I am not using like Mark Carter, again, one of my favorite online teachers. I'm not using one of his techniques right now for color matching. I'm just color matching on the fly. And while I'm on the subject, let me go ahead. One of the things that Mark Carter says, which was so helpful to me, he says the most common mistake that an early portrait painter will make is they will over contrast their face, the face they're painting. And I want to point out right now that this little guy's face is considerably too contrasty. Can you squint? Can you see how, like where, well, I've improved it now somewhat. But anyway, still, yeah, down here a little bit too dark, just too contrasty. It doesn't have enough light, but it has too much dark. I'll put it that way. So that was a really good tip. I heard that several years ago from Mark Carter. That's Carter with a D. He's a big dog painter. Speaking of big dog painters, I was going to mention that this acetate trick that I showed you a little while ago. Again, that's where you print out the reference, same size as your painting, Then you trace it on acetate with a fine pen, and then tape it here and get the transfer made. I saw Ron, I think it's Ron Lustauer, Lushauer, I think. I think he's I'm not sure he's a big dog portrait painter, but he's a middle-sized dog portrait painter, I would say. You know, better than me, better known than I know, shh, you English majors. I use wrong grammar on purpose sometimes, so as not to sound snooty. He's he's a better painter than I, and he uses that technique. So it's always, because as far as I know, I had invented it myself. I never saw anybody else do it. So it's always kind of encouraging to discover that, oh, I'm not the only one who does that, right? So Ron Lustauer, he's got some good videos on portraits, and one of them he uses that same technique. I've just put now some lighter flesh tone, and I'm just again going to begin building up. When I say building up, what that really means is intensifying, lighter and darker. And that's pretty ironic, since I just said to you that there's a little bit too much contrast. Let me go back just before I end this broadcast, because I'm not doing it right now, but look at that, paint with your fingers. And that's part of the reason I have this thing to clean off my fingers. Needs more red, doesn't it? More orange, see? One of the really good tricks I learned from Mark Carter is to laminate this image, and then you can test colors right on the plastic. I'm not going to do that, at least not right now. I might do it later, but I'm going to leave you, or you're going to leave me for a little while now, and let me see what comments have been made. Uncle says, drawing is like playing an instrument. Practice, practice, practice. God gives some people a pencil to draw, but God gave me a shovel to dig holes. I don't believe that for a minute, Horatio, but that's funny. That's good. Maggie says, hey, plain baby wipes work great. That's very good. Thank you, Maggie. So, and you know what? I bet they're a lot cheaper, because anything that you buy at an art store is more... Oh, I shouldn't say this about my good friends at Jerry's Artorama, but you and I both know it's true. If you could buy it somewhere else, it's cheaper. Thanks for that tip, Maggie. I'm sure it's true. Hello, Brenda. And everybody. Yeah, good to be back, Brenda. Oh, and Maggie says you can also wipe off your palette. What a great idea. Hello, Ruth. Are you talking about me, or are you talking about somebody else? Thank you. Anyway, if it's me, thank you. If it's somebody else, great. Stop being nice to other people on my broadcast, would you? All right, I'm kidding. Hey, Brenda, Midnight here. Got to crash. You're very welcome. Good to have you with us. All right, I'm going to stop and start taking everything. I'm going to start introducing color, red, blue, tan, and of course I have a whole bunch of. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands, or partial hands to do, a couple legs, and then clothing. Anyway, so I got a ways to go. So I'm going to paint by myself. I promise, if I find myself doing something exciting, I will start broadcasting again. All right, thanks for watching. Bye bye.